He made a very wise decision joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, because we have Director of College Scouting Mike Potts joining us in our brand new studios provided by First Star Logistics in our brand new building. And Mike Potts, Director of College Scouting for the Bengals, he is the guy that is the conductor leading the orchestra on draft day and everything leading up to the draft. A full year of preparation, a full year of setting the board. And when they set their board, they believe in their board. They stay by their board. No trades for the first time since 2020. They kept all 10 of their picks. And in the later stages of the draft, they got guys in the late rounds they had drafted, they had rated much higher, in some cases by 1 or 2 rounds. Mike Potts gives us a synopsis, a scouting report on every single draft pick. You're going to love it. We appreciate you joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, as always. And we are in our brand new studios at First Star Logistics. Their brand new building, our brand new studios. And we have a guest, not brand new, thankfully. He's joined us a few times, and he is one heck of a guest and always gets a big response. And that's Director of College Scouting, Mike Potts, who is the man. Mike, we visited with you before the draft. It was awesome. You gave us a lot of really good information in preparation for the draft. So here, post-draft, first of all, welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me, Lap. Yeah, we kind of went through the preparations for the draft prior to it, so now we can kind of dive in and talk about some of the guys that we ended up getting.
Yeah, let's get right into it. First of all, when you've had time to kind of sit back, a deep breath, and relax a little bit, what's your overall reactions? A couple of things that you thought about that draft in its entirety.
You know what? I think we ended up just placing values on these players on our board, and at the end of the day, we stayed patient. There was a number of trades that we could have made, both moving up or moving back. We ended up not making any of those trades, which is a little atypical, for the common year. But we stayed patient, stayed true to our board, and we're really happy with the 10 players that we ended up selecting.
When you say that, I mean, was there buzz? Was there activity almost every single round? I mean, could you have, I'm not saying moving up and moving back. I'm not saying both, activity in both areas every single round. But at some point in time, in just about every round of the draft, somebody was calling or you were calling somebody to see if there'd be interest?
Yeah, I would say that's fair to say, whether it was coming from us or other teams calling us, one way or the other, moving up or moving back, there was some sort of interest in almost every pick, out of the 10 selections that we had. And, those discussions are always going on, and it has to be a fit for both sides. And just for whatever reason, it didn't end up working out that we made a trade. But again, we had enough players on the board in each of our selections where we felt good about staying put, and that it wasn't a player that we wanted to pass up on in terms of moving back. And we felt good enough with the number of guys that were there that we didn't feel the extreme urgency to give up assets to move forward and move up to pick a player that we had targeted. So again, we're happy with the way it played out. There's a lot of different scenarios that you go in, and there's a lot of different discussions that we had, in the heat of the moment on draft day, just in terms of how those scenarios could play out. But again, we're really pleased with the outcome.
I think it's the first time, correct me if I'm wrong on this, no trades since 2020 draft for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that's the year. No trades since that draft class. How close were you on some? Were you fairly close on some, or was it never anything to write home about?
Nothing to report or write home about. There, you always, if there's discussions that are made, there's offers that are made, you're always relatively close. But it's, a discussion of, hey, our player has to be there. Maybe that player gets taken a couple of picks before our pick, or maybe a team finds another trade, that they're, super urgent and aggressive, trying to move up maybe even a few picks before us, and they end up finding that trade before, as opposed to waiting for it to get to our spot where we're on the clock. So yeah, we were close, a few times there, but it never ended up materializing.
Let's get into the actual picks. Get a little commentary from you with all 10 selections. And you had 8 selections last year, 8 picks. They all made the team. They all had some sort of role that probably you had defined prior to even picking them. And in some cases, some guys probably exceeded their role. They expanded their role as such. When you're drafting a guy, do you already have some sort of a role in mind, whether it be minimum of practice squad, rostering, primary backup, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, that's part of our discussions in our draft meetings in April leading up to the draft. We meet for about 3 weeks straight, and that involves our personnel staff and then also our coaching staff and ownership group. So that's kind of the constant discussion that we have, is the vision for the player, how he would fit into our depth chart, how he would fit into our scheme. And the other thing is there's not always a clear path for these guys, but that kind of goes into why you would take the best player available and add that quality depth, especially if it's a premium position like we did some in this draft. And you never know what the roster is going to look like later on in terms of injuries. So it is a balance between a clear role and path for where our roster sits right now, but then you also have to balance that out with adding quality depth, because you never know how the roster is going to sit later on into camp and then on into the season.
6 quarterbacks went in the first 12 picks. 14 offensive players were chosen before a defensive player came off the board. I mean, both records, obviously. What were you guys thinking? What was going through your mind? Were you thinking this is a plus, or boy, I don't know, there's a run on tackles as well here? I mean, what were you guys thinking?
We knew there was a lot of really good quarterbacks up there at the top of the draft. So we thought that there was 6 guys that could go up there ahead of us. We didn't know for sure if it would happen or not. Of course, us not being in the quarterback market there in the first round, we're rooting for as many quarterbacks to go as possible there in the first 17 picks before we get on the clock at 18. So we were very happy with 6 of those guys going off the board in the top 12 picks, and it pushed back that many more players to us that could be available at the 18th selection.
And then with 14 offensive players, they started to take some tackles. Were you at that point? Were you thinking, okay, let's be patient? And that's the one thing that I think you guys do, as an organization led by Duke and all you guys. The patience that you guys exhibit sometimes has to be, cross all fingers and all toes, possibly.
Yeah, we stayed true to our board, and there was a group of players that we felt really good about. Obviously, the tackle position is something that we were dialed in on, but there was guys at other positions as well that we felt really good about. So when you have those 6 quarterbacks go, you add, just doing the math, there's 12 more players that you have to feel really good about, and there was 12 players that we felt good about, and the way it came off the board, to be able to have a guy like Amarius Mims be there at 18 for us, we felt really good about it.
So you take Mims at 18, Fuaga went, I think, 19 to Pittsburgh, right? Or shortly thereafter. How close were those guys on your board?
Yeah, those guys we had. It was Faltanu, the Washington tackle.
I'm sorry, Faltanu. Yeah, the Washington tackle.
Yeah,
right.
Fuaga went a little bit before us. Yeah, I mean it's a outstanding tackle group. So they're it's tough to, not just in their names, but in their play, it's tough to differentiate and have tiebreakers between a lot of these guys. I mean, it was such a talented class, and we were very fortunate that it was. But yeah, we liked all of those guys up there, and yeah, like I said, not just the tackles, guys at other positions as well. And there was a number of guys that we felt good about, and like I said, we're happy with the way that it played out.
So what did you like about Mims?
Well, there's a lot to like about him. Obviously, everybody knows about his rare size, dimensions, rare body type, and length, but also an extremely good athlete, really strong, really powerful, excellent in pass pro. Obviously, it's a limited sample size with the amount of snaps that he played. But another thing that we also like about him is the adversity that he's been through. He wasn't always the man there, from day one. That's as good of a program, if not the best program in the country right now, in terms of the competition that he's facing within his O-line room, and then also the talented D lineman that he had to block every day in practice. So he kind of faced some adversity there. He faced some adversity with the ankle injury this year. Some guys maybe would have shut it down, knowing that they were a first-round type of talent. They could have shut it down for the rest of the year after that type of injury. But he came back and fought back off of that tightrope procedure and came back in the lineup to play. And then also on top of that, there was other things that have been reported publicly about him potentially transferring earlier in his career. He could have taken the easy way out there as well, but he wanted to compete with the best and stay there at Georgia, one of the best programs in the country. So those are some of the things that we like about his makeup. I'm sure you got to meet him there the day after we picked him. He's a really good person, really high character guy. So we like his personal character and his football character, and we love the talent, obviously. And we think the upside is through the roof, but he's a really good player right now. It's not just a guy that you're betting on the upside and what he could be in the future. We think he's a pretty darn good talent right now.
How about the bonus that he gets being mentored by two guys that are his body type? A lot of those measurables and dimensions are the same type of thing, and they can talk to him about, look, been in the league a while. You can use this to your advantage, built like we are. Watch out for this. They're going to try to use this against you. If you're jamming, don't jam parallel, stagger your hand, whatever the case may be. How fortunate is he to have that situation?
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate. I don't think we set out to have the biggest three tackles in the NFL. That's just the way that it worked out. We're obviously looking for the best in all areas across the board and all the traits of offensive linemen that we grade. But it's certainly, offensive line as well as anybody, Dave. I mean, these guys with the same body types, very similar length and dimensions and similar play styles as well. There's a lot that Amarius can learn from Orlando and Trent there in that room on a day-to-day basis. And some of the other veterans that we have in that room as well, he can obviously learn from regardless of the similarities in body type or not. So we're very fortunate to put him in the position that he's going to be put in. And we're excited to see what he's going to do for us.
And the fact that he had a 3.6 GPA, I mean, seems like he's going to be a sponge, man. He's going to be one of those kids guys, one of those young men that anything anybody has to offer him, he's going to take it all in, man. He's going to be a sponge.
I think that's right. He's intelligent. That's why in the scouting process we do all the work going through these schools, going through Georgia, talking to every staff member, every coach that we can possibly grab to get their opinion on a guy like Amarius. And all of the reports came back, speaking very highly of him and his intelligence and drive and work ethic. So, I think you're right. I think he's a guy that's going to be a sponge and come in and take in the coaching from our coaches, and then, like you said, also the mentorship from the other veteran players in that offensive line room.
Then with your second round pick, Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. I mean, obviously, you're talking Georgia, you're talking Michigan. You guys have done a hell of a job of taking players, prospects from big programs that have had success, been in the college football playoffs, have competed for or won national championships, and captains to boot. And this kid checks all those boxes. He's a hell of a player, isn't he?
He really is. Yeah, you're right. All things being equal, we like those guys that have played in the biggest of games, in front of 100,000 people and, however many other millions watching on TV in the big moments. So that makes our job a little bit easier, having seen them in those pressure-packed moments. But Chris is a really talented player. We wanted to address that defensive tackle position, and there was a number of guys we liked there, him being one of them, and we're very fortunate that he fell to us there in the second round. And we think he's got a well-rounded skill set, both playing against the run and rushing the passer. And we think he's got even more upside in his body to develop into something, even more and be a really good player for us down the line and in the immediate future as a rookie.
How long were you guys holding your breath, hoping that he did get there to you? Was there some thought, oh, geez, man, how many people have a need at this position ahead of us? Or did you guys feel pretty comfortable about it?
I wouldn't say we felt comfortable. You always feel prepared because you've done the work going into it. We've done all the analysis of the other teams and who could need defensive tackles. Obviously, we have to be prepared to pivot to another position if somebody goes or if a trade doesn't work out. But that's certainly a time that we were considering some of the trade calls, whether they were outgoing or incoming calls from other teams. we were certainly considering it because a guy like Chris, you never know if he's going to fall down to that pick number 49 or not. So we were really happy with the way it played out. There's always some tense moments in the draft room, but if you trust your board and you react accordingly, then it usually ends up working out very well for you.
So with pick number 18 and pick number 49, you address your upfront offensive and defensive lines. And by the way, Mims will be strictly a tackle, right? Plays some. He practiced, I know, at right and left tackle, but only played his game snaps are all at right tackle. But he's not going to kick into guard or anything. He's going to learn tackle initially, correct?
I think that's the plan. That'll be up to our coaches to decide if they want to slide him in there on the interior down the line. I wouldn't put it past him, but I think that's the plan for him to start out at us for us at the tackle position. Like I said, that'll be up to our coaches, Zach, and the rest of the staff in terms of their development plan for him and where they want to align him. But yeah, you're right. He did practice some at left tackle. That's part of the advantage that we get as scouts being down there the last 3 years, seeing him in practice at both tackle spots and get a good evaluation there in terms of things that you may not necessarily see on his film, having lined up all of his snaps there at right tackle at Georgia. So that's another piece of the evaluation. But I think he'll start out at tackle for us, and we'll see where it goes from there in terms of our coaches and when and where he's going to crack the lineup for us.
So pick number 80, the cameras caught Zach Taylor's excitement with the selection of pick number 80. He was fired up about being able to coach Jermaine Burton, a kid that first-round talent. I mean, he is he's a guy that can run away from people, and, man, he's got good hands. I mean, hard to find a drop, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, he's got really good hands. It's hard to poke major holes in his game. I mean, he's an explosive guy who can really run. He can get down the field and beat you deep on the down the field vertical routes. And then he's also got the quickness to separate underneath. He's got good play strength, good competitiveness. And like you said, really, really good hands. There's not many drops on his tape when you're studying him over the past several years, both at Georgia and Alabama. So we feel fortunate to add an explosive weapon like that to our offense. And yeah, you're right. Everybody was excited on that one in terms of the vision that we have for him and what he can do. Putting him into our offense with the other explosive weapons that we have.
Yeah, I mean, a kid that played at Georgia and Alabama, man, that's pretty good coaching. That's pretty good competition. I mean, and he averaged over 20 yards a catch his senior, over 18 yards a catch for his career. I mean, man, it looks like he tracks the ball, extremely well. And then as obviously, and we found out that he's one of TJ Hurstmanzada's guys. And I noticed the subtleties in his route running, the TJ Hurstmanzada's all about. This kid does a good job in, changing speeds and, a little wiggle. I mean, he keeps corners on their heels and not in their toes a little bit, it looks like.
Yeah, he can change tempo in his routes for sure. Gear up, gear down. He's got really good savvy to him in terms of his route running and ability to attack leverage and play around with different route stems and set defenders up. So he's been coached really well. That's the best of the best, obviously playing there at Alabama and Georgia. So he's had great coaching, across the board. So he's been exposed to high-end competition. Again, like we were talking about with Amarius, both in practice and in games, playing in the SEC and in some of those high-level, college football playoff bowl games, conference championship type of games. So he's certainly been battle tested, and you have to take that into the evaluation, and that's something that makes you feel good about a player like that transitioning to this level in the NFL.
Troy Walters will be coaching him, and with Troy, his room is noted for everybody mentally and physically interchangeable. I mean, they can play inside, play outside. Has he got that ability? You guys feel comfortable with his versatility in that regard as well?
Yeah, I think he does. Like I said, he's got the skill set in terms of the size, speed, quickness, change of direction, route running ability. I think he's got that physical ability to play both inside and outside. Again, like we've talked about with some of the other guys, it's going to be up to our coaches in terms of how much they want to put on his plate right away. As a rookie, you obviously don't want to overwhelm guys and
right.
Have them lining up all over the place right off the bat. In some cases, so that'll be up to our coaches in terms of what they deem appropriate there. But he definitely has the physical skill set to align, in multiple spots in our offense. So it'll be exciting to see what he can do there in terms of the different roles that he can play for us on offense.
Next up, McKinley Jackson out of Texas A&M. It seems like he was the last true nose guard type body, available. But man, I'll tell you what, this guy, he's got size, he's got length, but he's slippery, man. He's got some athleticism to him. I mean, this dude's not a stiff, I mean, and the thing I like about him is in this league, it's turned into hand-to-hand combat. and Mims, long arms, big old hands, man. He can lock people up. This guy has got powerful, big, strong hands as well. Jenkins does too. I mean, all the guys you pick have, that hand-to-hand combat that goes on, not only in the NFL, but college football is the same way now with rules. So this guy's impressive in that regard, isn't he?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm glad you said that because a lot of people see 330-pound nose tackle and they're thinking just a big run plugger that can eat up gaps and, take on double teams and two gap. He does have some slipperiness to him as a pass rusher. You watch his Texas A&M tape, and they've got him getting upfield, getting on the edges of offensive linemen. He can bend and turn the corner. Both of those guys, he and Chris, both have long arms. They're both in that 34-inch arm range, so they can lock out, they can shed. Like you said, they play with heavy hands and violence at the point of attack. So we think McKinley has a well-rounded game. He's not just a run plugger. He's got some pass rush upside to him and a really good athlete for that size, in that 330-pound range with the length that he has in the strength. So we felt fortunate to get him there at the bottom of the third round. And nose tackle is a position that we wanted to address. And we think we came away with two really talented defensive tackles there in the top 3 rounds.
And man, they seem like, quality people. You guys do such a great job evaluating that as well. I mean, Chris Jenkins, McKinley Jackson, they both came in at the same day. So we got to meet them as well. And man, Jenkins was a captain. Jackson was a 2-time captain. It's like the leadership, the personality. They had smiles on their faces the whole time they're talking. It's like these guys, man, they enjoy football. They enjoy life. I mean, those are the kind of guys you want to be around.
Absolutely. They popped in our draft room on Saturday while we were in there having some discussions after they landed, the morning after. We selected them, and yeah, you're right. They came in, ton of charisma, ton of positive energy. Obviously, really, really excited. One of the best days of their life. Coming off of, in all likelihood. So you expect that, but that's how those guys were throughout the process. We interviewed those guys multiple times, and then we had both of those guys in to Cincinnati for 30 visits prior to the draft. So it kind of aligned with how they were. You're not just seeing an excited guy who just got drafted. They kind of check those character boxes through those exposures prior to the draft as well.
So initially, the anticipation is McKinley Jackson will line up, inside 0-1 or whatever, and then is Jenkins more of a 3 technique? Is that the visualization for him as well?
Yeah, I think Jenkins, can play up and down the line of scrimmage. He's got, probably prototypical 3-tech type of dimensions. But I wouldn't just pigeonhole him in that one position in terms of alignment. He can play stout at the point of attack. He can 2-gap if you ask him to. If you ask him to take on double teams. So I think he's got some versatility to slide up and down the line. I think both of those guys do. I wouldn't pigeonhole McKinley just solely lining up in the A gap every single snap. I think he can move up and down the line of scrimmage as well some. So we like the versatility in both of those guys.
And boy, they were obviously well coached and in competitive conferences. I mean, I like it. I mean, this draft, solid as a rock. It's like, all right, well, maybe not as sexy as some other people's drafts because you address to it's never sexy when you draft linemen. I can speak to that. I can attest to that. But to me, what you guys have done at this stage of the draft, solid as a rock. So now with the 100, that was the 97th pick, McKinley Jackson. At number 115, you had this kid rated a lot higher than he, fell to you on draft day at the board at number 115. You had him rated much higher, tight end Erik All. Tell us about that selection and what you see and anticipate there.
Yeah, you're right. We definitely had Erik rated higher than where we got him there in the 4th round. I think a lot of it, as has been reported, is the medical situation. He's coming off of that knee injury that he had last year at Iowa. So we placed a value there in terms of the fourth round. We felt really, maybe he was in the discussions even earlier than that, but we felt really good in terms of pulling him off the board there in the fourth round. Didn't want to risk waiting another round in terms of teams passing on him. It only takes one team to pluck him off the board there, and we think he's got a starter level skill set. Obviously, he's got to come in, he's got to get off of the injury and finish the rest of his rehab process. But in terms of what you see on his tape, both earlier in his career at Michigan and then what he did this year at Iowa, who's been somewhat of a tight end factory there at the University of Iowa. We feel really excited about adding a player like that in terms of both in the run and pass game. We think he's a well-rounded tight end, not just a one-dimensional guy like some of the guys that you see that are just pass catchers or just Y only type of tight ends that are more just blocking types. So we felt good about pulling him off there in the fourth round, and then we'll see. All reports are positive so far, him coming off of his injury. We'll see when it's appropriate to get him back off of the injury, but very excited to see what Erik can do once we get him up to speed for us.
3-down tight end, captain at Michigan as well. I mean, you drafted 2 captains from Michigan, from that program. You can't sneeze at that. Character and leadership off the charts. My goodness, man. Okay, so that's pick 115. Pick 149 in the 5th round. Josh Newton out of TCU. Had him rated much higher than he came to you on your board as well. Talk about this young man.
Yeah, again, I've said before, it sounds repetitive that we're surprised that these guys are there because we have them rated higher than where we got them, because the reason that we end up selecting those guys is because they're our highest rated guy on the board, who we would have considered around earlier, and that's the case also with Josh Newton. So we felt really good with his skill set and his evaluation, both as his character assessment from our scouts and our coaches, in terms of our interviews with him and going through the school and talking to sources there at TCU. And then also when you evaluate his tape, we think he's a versatile player, very competitive, physical, tough player, been very productive there throughout his college career. A lot of on-ball production. So a guy that we're really happy to add in terms of depth and competition to that cornerback room. And, we'll see once we get him here later this week for rookie minicamp. That'll be the first time to get him here in the Bengals uniform and get him with our coaches and continue that development process.
Yeah, his tape, boy, he showed himself as a physical tackler, man. He'll compete with you and inside, outside. I mean, you feel like he can do both?
I do. I think he can do both. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got enough size. Like you said, he's got enough physicality to him for sure.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say enough. He's got good physicality, good instincts. And, I think that bodes well for him to being able to move around, both maybe playing in the slot there at nickel or playing on the perimeter as an outside corner. So ran well. We had a 4.47, 4.51 were his 40 times that we had on him. So, he checks a lot of boxes in terms of the athleticism and, all of the traits across the board. So to answer your question, yeah, we like the versatility, and we think he's a multi-alignment type of guy at the defensive back position.
People weren't surprised that you doubled down at defensive tackle in the draft, early in the draft, but it picked number 194. Joe Bengal fan was like, another tight end? Tell us about that tight end choice at 194. Obviously, best player on the board, you'd have to say?
Best player on the board for sure. Tanner McLachlan. We feel, again, really, really fortunate that he was there in the 6th round. Really dynamic guy in the pass game who has upside as a blocker as well. So, 2 of our tight ends are on 1-year deals, so you never know what it'll be like in terms of in that tight end room going into the future in terms of re-signing guys or what will look like in 2025. But we think Tanner's a guy that can make an impact this year. He's a really athletic guy. Another guy like we were talking about with Jermaine Burton, extremely good hands and catching skills. There's not many drops that you can find on Tanner's tape as well when you're studying him at the University of Arizona. So, again, very fortunate that he was there in the 6th round. And again, you can never go wrong adding the best player on your board and adding more depth to that tight end room. We didn't have many numbers there at the tight end position going into the draft, but we feel really good about the depth now in the tight end room coming out of draft weekend.
I know we're getting close to the time that I requested for you to be available to podcast. You have time to give us quick comments on the last three selections of the draft and maybe quick comments on the college free agents. Does that work for you, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So how about the 214th pick, 6th round, Cedric Johnson? Give us a lowdown there.
Yeah, Cedric, really, really talented guy, explosive athlete, good size, good strength. He's powerful. Had a good week down there at the Senior Bowl when we were evaluating him down there. I kind of alluded to it earlier, a premium position. You may look at our roster and think we've got really nice depth there at that defensive end, that edge position right now. But you never know what the roster is going to look like into the future. And he's going to be a guy that's going to come in and be really competitive for us in camp, push for a roster spot. And I wouldn't put it past a guy like him carving out a real role early in his career, because he's that type of talent, and another very high character, intelligence guy who's a clean guy in terms of the evaluation, checks a lot of boxes for us. So again, another guy that if you would have told me before the draft that he was going to be there in the 6th round, I would have signed up for that type of selection, because we thought he would go a little bit earlier than that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, defensive end out of Ole Miss, runs 4.63, 38-inch vertical. Whew. He's got some explosiveness to him, doesn't he? Man, unbelievable. All right, so let's go to pick number 224, Daijahn Anthony. Tell us about this defensive back out of Ole Miss. You went Ole Miss, back-to-back.
We did. Ole Miss back-to-back. Daijahnn's a guy that we brought in for a visit. Got to spend some time with him. We kind of had him as a potential target, going into that visit. Obviously, guys can come in for visits and eliminate themselves, but we really enjoyed spending time around Daijahn. Just his competitiveness and passion for the game really shines through when you meet with him. I'm sure you'll get to spend some time with him here in the coming weeks, and he's an enjoyable guy to be around. And then when you watch his tape, that competitiveness really shows up as well. He's a versatile defensive back who's got some corner and safety experience in his play history there at Ole Miss. And he's a guy that, like I said, we kind of had targeted there after that visit. We kind of highlight guys on our draft board, that we feel really good about, conviction in terms of the interview process, spending time around them, and then where they could slot in and fit in and have a role for us. We think he's a competitive guy who can translate well to playing on special teams units as well. So we're really excited to see what Daijahn can do when we get him in here.
And the 237th pick, the 7th round pick. I know you guys had him rated quite a bit higher, and people around the league, offensive line type folks around the league, they said after the draft, Matt Lee, value with a capital V. Can't believe the Bengals got him at pick number 237. You guys had to be happy about that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, a guy that we had valued higher for sure than the 7th round. So you're really happy when a guy like that is there available to you. Interior offensive line, we hadn't addressed that yet in the first 9 picks. You'd like to address, all things being equal, you'd like to address as many positions as you can. So a guy that we had high regard for, did the whole scouting process on him. I was able to be down there at his pro day down at Miami, had a really good workout down there. He's a really athletic offensive lineman. Really enjoyed spending time with him at the East-West game. We had a nice long interview with him there. So he's another guy, Lap and the rest of our crew, when you get to spend more time around him here in the coming weeks, you're going to really, really enjoy spending time with him. Guy has natural leadership traits and, just passion for the game, similar to what I was saying with Daijahn Anthony in terms of his makeup, but a really athletic offensive lineman. He plays physical, really good in pass protection. You're not going to find a whole lot of pressures or sacks when you're watching his tape. So a pretty clean player that way, in terms of his tape and film evaluation. So, really, really excited to get him in the 7th round. And, he's going to add some really nice depth and competition to our offensive line room and, push the guys in front of him and try to carve out a role for himself.
So around the league, picks number 70 or 80 to pick number 150, 160, everybody was like, we're going to get some really good football players. And you guys stayed. You didn't trade up or down. And at number 80, you get Burton. Number 97, you get Jackson. Number 115, you get All. And number 149, you get Newton. I mean, darn good football players. I mean, so I can see why you, and you had other people that you liked in those spots as well. I can see why you did exactly what you did. So now the draft's over. Real quick comment about your college free agent process, Mike, because you guys do it as well as anybody in the business. How do you do it, and how did it go this year?
Yeah, it's almost, I guess, organized chaos is probably a good way to term it. There's hundreds of phone calls going on and text messages between ourselves and agents and players. Our personnel staff, very proud of the work that they do, across the board. But the college free agency is a huge part of it. And our coaches are involved in that process as well, and they assist us and do a great job helping us out there as well. We obviously can't comment on those college free agents publicly until they pass their physical and they've officially signed their contracts. But there's definitely it's definitely a strong group that we're excited about, a lot of those guys. And, we think they can push for real roles for us, either on the 53 or on the practice squad. And, it's a heck of a process. And, like I said, our guys do a great job of being as efficient as possible and really attacking the guys that we have targeted there.
How early do you start talking to these guys? You don't want to do it obviously in day one. I mean, it's just the first round. But how many rounds go by? And I'm sure it's different for different teams. But when do you start talking to a guy? Hey, if it doesn't work out, if you don't go like in the 6th or 7th round here, we really like you. I mean, how do you handle that kind of a phone call? And that might be a tough phone call to make to some kids, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not allowed to officially make an agreement until after the 7th round is over, but we're constantly developing those relationships. Again, our coaches, our scouts do a great job of interviewing these players at their pro days in person, private workouts, and then keeping in touch with them with the 1-hour Zoom meetings that we have with them. So developing that relationship to where, if you're calling a guy after the draft, it's not the first time that he's heard from you. You've already got a relationship developed with them, and you never know. There's guys that you're developing a relationship that could be a target for us in the 5th round, but you never know how the draft could play out. And guys unexpectedly can go undrafted that you expected to be, solid, strong day 3 draft picks. And because you've developed that relationship, it's an easier process and a smooth transition to, transitioning that phone call to potentially acquiring those guys as undrafted free agents.
Well, Mike, appreciate all your time. Thanks for carving so much time. I mean, unbelievable information for our viewers and listeners on a round by round basis, and how each selection came about. And as I said, nobody does it any better. I mean, this draft was solid as a rock, as are you and your entire department and everybody involved with the draft, my man.
Thanks, Lap. I really appreciate it. We're really happy with the way it played out. Really excited to get these players in here. And like you said, really proud of our staff and all the work that they've put in, not just over the past year. I mean, we've been scouting a lot of these guys for 2, 3, 4 years, throughout their college careers. So a lot of work goes into it, across the board throughout our organization. And we're really happy with the way it played out.
Thanks, Mike. Have the best day ever had, my man.
Will do. Thanks a lot, Lap.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.